Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's live trade review and live trading session. I have a number of trades on at the moment, so I'm probably not going to add anything. You can hear in the background that I have the TV on as well, listening to CNBC ahead of the PPI number, and we're starting to see a bit of volatility start to seep through into the markets. I just closed the DAX position just before we started this session. I'll turn that down a little bit till this is live. I just closed the DAX position prior to this, just trying to tidy up my position a little bit before these numbers start to come out. We've had the JP Morgan numbers already and some comments from Jamie Dimon, which focus largely on some of the risks that the business is facing. The Ukraine situation being one of those. Obviously, inflation still a big issue after the CPI numbers yesterday, pushing those to another 4 or 5 decade high, I think it is. And then we have the PPI number coming out in about 6 or 7 minutes or so. And then we'll see how that trades through to the opening bell. Now, it was a very volatile session yesterday in the American trading hours. A big rally at first in belief that the inflation levels that we're now seeing, there are signs in some of the data to suggest that we are at the peak level or nearing the peak level of that inflation issue. The market rallied hard, and by the end of the day was a lot lower and closed about 80 points down on the day. But in terms of how low it was off of its high, it closed nearly down 450 to 500 points. So a significant movement off of the rally that we saw. Potentially just a small relief rally, And as we see now, if we look at Dow futures at the moment, we can see Dow futures are particularly soft again. I think we could be being bullied slightly in this particular phase. Obviously, the number is going to come out shortly. I'm just going to buy here at 34,200. You'll see that coming through, hopefully, on your trades fairly soon. So we'll use that as the trade for the opening session today. Just we bought there at 34,200, or rather for the PPI numbers that are about to come out. So we'll see how that moves over the next period. In terms of other things that are going on in the marketplace at the moment, obviously the PPI number is the next thing that's coming up, but we have the ECB meeting as well tomorrow that a lot of people are focusing on just to see how things are reacting in the European zone, and if there is going to be any activity from the ECB in terms of rates in the short term. So we'll see how that goes. We also have lockdowns in places like Shanghai, an increasing rate of COVID cases in certain parts of America, including Philadelphia. That all of these things are risks to the market at the moment. The one thing that we've seen over the last few minutes is gold has traded down quite aggressively. We were trading at 1980. We're down to about 1973. I do have a fairly ugly gold trade still open from yesterday, so I'll be looking to close that during the course of today. I am flying back to Ireland very early tomorrow morning. So we are seeing a bit of a sell-off in gold there. The Dow has rallied slightly. We're trading 24,208. I might just put a limit in there, 230. See if we can have that taken out sometime around this number coming out. So I'll just put that in whilst we're talking. So we're fairly, and gold is still breaking down. So unfortunately, I hadn't added to my gold position, as you will have seen. I had averaged it a couple of times during the course of today and taken profit on as those had fallen away. So I'm just going to put a TP level in there at 34,230 for the trade that I've just done whilst we've been talking, and we'll just see how we move towards this number. About 2.5-3 minutes or so to go until we get to that number. It's not as big a number as we saw with the CPI yesterday. It was a fairly breathtaking rally that we saw, pushed the market up about 350 points at its high before we started to see that bit of a sell-off. So you can see a bit of fluctuation here at the moment. Gold has levelled off around the 1973 level, was slightly positive on the Dow trade that we did, and the DAX is trying everything that it can to hold on to 14,000. We're slightly below that level at the moment, but we have found support every time that we've pushed down to this level over the last period. So we're about 2.5-3 minutes or so out from the PPI number. There was somebody on CNBC just a few minutes ago talking about COVID and the fact that we are still with COVID, although it may not necessarily feel like that. There is a significant shutdown in Shanghai at the moment, and if that does start to move a little bit wider, there is going to start to be some impact on the economy there. There is already some impact on the economy there, but it could start to have more impact around the globe if there is an extension of things going there. And as I've mentioned already, there are a few places in the US that are seeing a number of measures being reintroduced to ensure that the latest strain of COVID, whatever it may be called these days, is being kept at bay. I won't move on to looking at the trades yet. I think we'll just get through this PPI number and then see how this market moves from here. So for the bell, in terms of, I am already long the Dow. I was expecting JP Morgan's numbers to be a bit better than they have been. Very cautious tone from Jamie Dimon in relation to looking forward and some of the risks that the banks are facing, and that's why we've seen this sell-off pre-market. But we're hopefully seeing a levelling out now. Otherwise, you will see me trigger some stops fairly soon after the opening bell. A couple of stops that were particularly nasty yesterday, but we'll talk about those in a few minutes when we get onto onto looking at the trades. And if you do have any questions, please send those through to Sam. He'll get them through to me, and if I don't have the chance to answer them during this particular session, I'll get back to you during the remainder of the day. As I've mentioned already, I am still in Dubai. I will be back in Ireland at lunchtime tomorrow for the afternoon trading session. Bit of a sell-off there in the indices. Just waiting for this number to come through. You're always going to get a bit of volatility around. So it's another big, strong number for the PPI, up 1.4%. I think I'm hearing in my ear. So a really strong number. Not sure if it's quite a record number, but certainly a strong number. And the markets, after a bit of early fluctuation, are probably levelling out here around 34,190, 195 on the Dow. So some of the revisions coming through are going to affect this market. Gold is selling off a little bit, nothing too aggressive. And we're not really seeing too much movement, to be honest with you. So I'm still long here from the trade that we did earlier at 34,200. I'll let that continue to play out in the short term. So 1.4% versus 1.1%, which was the estimate. So a PPI number that's considerably stronger than what people were expecting. So I think keeps with the theme that we saw yesterday, that inflation is going to continue to be a problem, and the central banks are going to have to act more aggressively to start to contain that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move away from the screens now. We're not seeing a great deal of movement. Markets, certainly the Dow is a couple of points away from where I traded. The one market that has fallen away a little bit on the back of the number, which had been holding up particularly well until that point, is the DAX, which has fallen away to about 13,960, 970. So we'll see how that develops. Not the market that you would initially expect to have some impact, or the PPI number to have some impact on. The Dow's moved back above 34,210, 215. Probably just we'll have a look at the Dows going through here. So there it is. You can see the extent of the movement. Nothing spectacular. I was just hoping that we might see the 230 level that I put in whilst I was talking, but not yet. So we'll just start to look at the trades for this week. So you can see there, far too many trades yesterday. Still have a gold trade open, which is markedly against me. And then I've accumulated a number of positions over the last hour that the Dow trades are against me at this point. One DAX trade, and that's it, to be honest. We've just bought the Dow there, so I'll just put that trade in, and that's still open. So that's the extent of the trading. Of note are the two particular ugly stops that I made yesterday. The Dow at 34,649, not too far off the high. The DAX at 14,150, which was a long way off of the high, but probably too exposed at that time, and had to trigger the stop. I've been holding with the Dow. I did expect it to go down. Unfortunately, it did go down, but far too late for me, and so a couple of ugly stops there, and potentially one more in gold. I am long the market at this particular point. We'll just see how that is still reacting. So we're still there, 34,209. It's been up to 222, so we missed out slightly on the on taking the take profit being triggered there. Still there around 16, 17, but nothing aggressive to the upside. So the markets now for the remainder of the day are going to digest the JP Morgan results. I'm sure there are some more earnings that are going to come to the fore this afternoon. And they will also a lot of and so I was thinking of maybe taking the 20 pips that were on offer there, but unfortunately the market's just slipped away from there now, and we'll just see how that continues to move over the next period. So as I've mentioned, markets this afternoon will digest the JP Morgan results. They will digest the PPI numbers. The Treasury yields will receive a lot of focus, as they have over the period. The word recession was bandied around a few times yesterday. Nothing too aggressive in that regard. But the mention of the word, the inversion of the yield curve, as we've seen over the last number of weeks, does raise some concerns. So I think what I'm going to do is we've slipped back to 34,190, so I'm going to hold that trade for the time being. Not going to hold it up for too long. We'll see how we go towards the opening bell. As I mentioned coming on to talk to you this afternoon, I am going to adjust my position fairly quickly after the opening bell. Try and run what position I have at the moment, unless we see a decent uplift over the next few minutes. Run the position that I have through to the opening bell, and then see how the markets take hold of the market from there. I do think the market will attempt to keep the markets or the index well above 34,000. I think there is the potential for a rally, as I've mentioned a few times this week. You do see some bargain hunting come through. The JP Morgan results, unfortunately, today have disappointed, which has tempered the market somewhat again. But hopefully that there are enough bargains or cheap stocks out there to attract people into the market and see us a little bit higher from here. At the moment, it stands to be a positive week. I do have some nasty trades nasty losing trades to close out during the course of the remainder of today, which of course I will do, and that will be reflected against the overall number. But I'd like to see that we see a bit of a pickup and an uplift from the levels that we're currently trading. As I've mentioned already, I'm travelling back from Dubai tomorrow. I'm just going to bring the markets in general up here, just to see what they're doing. So gold back down to 1975, had been a bit lower, rallied all the way back up to 1978. It's seen that little bit of volatility around the open. We'll get another move around the opening bell. The DAX has picked up a little bit, moving back closer to 14,000. So we'll see how that continues to go during the course of this afternoon. But I'm not in the mood to add anything at this particular time. What I'm looking to do is hopefully start to unwind some of these positions. So hopefully you'll see some of those transactions coming back through, and we're moving back towards 34,220 on the Dow. So there is potential there for that TP to be taken on that Dow trade. Keep an eye on the DAX. I do think that it will hold 14,000 today, so I think opportunities to buy below that level are attractive. Gold, as you'll know from the last couple of weeks, I do think that we're looking at a move lower. Unfortunately, what we've seen is a move higher during the course of this week with all of the inflation data that we're seeing. But I would like to think that we're starting to plateau in relation to inflation, and we'll start to see some improvement from this point. I'll leave you there. I will be back to you shortly, updating you with the trades that I still have left open. And the first of those ideally will be gold, which will rally up to the level that we're looking to take profit at. If we see 220 again, there is and if we stall at 220, I will probably take profit at that level. So just keep an eye on Telegram for those messages coming through very shortly. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'll be back in Ireland tomorrow, and we'll be back on the same time zone. I will be trading the opening in, I think I get back to Ireland about midday tomorrow, so there will be trading from midday onwards, nothing in the morning. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will speak to you soon.